topic today, promoting intergenerational programming in Extension. We're focusing specifically on a program called Building a Community Legacy Together. We have received Hatch and Smith-Lever funds, and also a gift from Rebecca Q. Morgan to fund this work. As I said earlier, I work for the Cornell Institute for Translational Research on Aging. We have many different projects in play, and at the end, I'm going to share a website with you. We now have a CITRA website with 5 or 6 different programs on it that we're looking to disseminate. So we hope you take a look at that. So let's get right to it. What is the Building a Community Legacy Together program? The BCLT is an innovative intergenerational program built on 7 years of work in the Cornell Legacy Project. It sheds lights on the benefits of intergenerational programs, as well as providing useful experience controlling in controlled evaluations with county cooperative extension professionals as research partners. The BCLT is based on the success, on the success of the Cornell Legacy Project, in which more than 1,000 Americans over the age of 65 were surveyed to seek their practical advice on issues such as marriage, work, career, finding happiness. This is the largest study ever conducted regarding that kind of practical advice. The BCLT program provides a structured opportunity for high school-aged youth to interview elders 65 and older about their practical advice for living, or life lessons as we call them, from which youth can actually benefit. Involvement in the BCLT can lead to a reduction in ageism. Youth see the elders as experts, and the elders experience the youth as engaged, interested, and respecting their wisdom and advice. We're hoping that this shrinks the gap between the generations. One elder participant phrased it like this.
Frankly, I think we need to turn the tables on this to get the full benefit from it by having the people that were interviewed now interview the youngsters that we talked to. I think it's important to us to now begin to bridge this gap between us by learning a whole bunch more about them and where their head is going at this time.
Great idea.
All right. In addition to learning about older people's life lessons and engaging in community service experience, the BCLT exposes the youth to social science STEM methods, including interviewing skills and techniques to interpret and analyze interview data, all of which may be useful to them in future endeavors. I'm just going to open the chat. There we go.
So can I ask a quick question here
Sure.
of our audience? So with that little introduction, can I ask for a raise of hands if you're familiar with this program? Have you been familiar with this before? So, yep, a couple. And I think Vicki Fleming had mentioned that they're hoping to start BCLT program this fall, so I bet she's okay. So familiarity is good, right?
It is very good. We're super excited to hear that people are interested in starting this, running it, and I will say later as well, but we are very excited about that and happy to provide any support we can. All right. There we go. From the standpoint of older participants, the program provides an opportunity for elders to benefit from the experience of sharing their wisdom with the youth. In doing so, it may reduce their sense of social isolation, provide a sense of usefulness, increase self-esteem, and improve their attitudes toward youth. And finally, there are also potential benefits for the community at large, including community knowledge gain. This program gathers advice from local communities based on lived reality, which has stood the test of time and offers a real chance of making a difference in how individuals from similar communities can live their lives. It offers roadmaps from people who have traveled the entire route with advice on overcoming barriers on that road. In addition, the BCLT can also assist the community at large by capturing a diminishing resource, that is, the generation that lived through the Great Depression of the 30s and World War II. Sadly, they won't be with us for that much longer, so capturing their wisdom now has urgency for a society that will not be able to access it later. The program can be completed within 3 months or less and includes a youth training, interviews between youth and elders, and a community presentation of the findings from those interviews. The length of time it takes to implement the BCLT depends on the time it takes to recruit participants, the number of participants, the logistics of scheduling the interviews, the time devoted to analyzing the interview data, and the complexity of the community presentation. The BCLT moves beyond traditional oral history projects. The typical goal of an oral history interview is to learn something about an historical period from the point of view of someone who lived through it, while providing a service to older people by letting them reminisce. Lessons about life for older people may emerge, but it is secondary to the history or storytelling narrative. However, the goal of the BCLT interview is to get information from the whole experience of a life well lived, with the intent of gleaning specific advice or life lessons from the elders in important areas of life. The life stories are secondary, important only for putting the advice in context. In the BCLT, elders consistently offer very practical and time-tested lessons. Be true to yourself. Let go of stress. Stay healthy. Find a passion. Friends are important. We asked the youth to include 3 questions from the Legacy Project study. And those are, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned over your life? Secondly, some people say they've had difficult or stressful experiences. What have you learned from that? And thirdly, what would you say your major values or principles that you live by are? In addition to that, we asked the youth and train them to develop their own questions regarding their particular interests. So for instance, what advice would you give to youth regarding their role in politics today? Have you ever found love? How did you know you were in love? And what's your advice about handling love? And so forth. So it's the question development piece is pretty fun because the kids can really direct the interview to something they're truly interested in or what's happening for them right at the moment. So there have also been questions about bullying and so forth.
Leslie, can I ask a question about the questions and
Yes,
the process?
for sure.
So it's an interview as opposed to a conversation.
It is.
I bet that's intentional. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I think that a conversation means that both people are contributing, right? That the elder is going to ask questions of the youth, and the youth will talk about themselves, and then the youth asks questions of the elder, and they'll talk about themselves. we really are, the point of this is to collect data on life lessons, important life lessons, advice. It's really, advice is the key word. Something that's actually, we tend to find, we might hesitate because, you know, the word out is don't give advice, just listen, right? But we are really interested in the advice of the elders. And the questions then facilitate the and keep the life story at bay, and keep the advice coming. So they're trying to collect as much advice as possible over a variety of topics.
Thank you for sharing that. Because I was also, you know, being the mom of 3 myself, knowing that if I asked my children at certain, you know, as teenagers, would you sit down and have a conversation with an older person that you didn't know, that might make them very nervous. Whereas if you gave them questions to ask, that seems like a reasonable and an easier do. And conversation and relationship might come from that, but it takes some of the anxiety out of the, you know, interacting with an older person that they don't necessarily know. Take some of that out of it. So I didn't know if that was part of the intentional process or not.
For sure, I think that's an unintended consequence. But in the science of qualitative data collection, you know, you always have a structured interview, a set of questions to ask. It's a good question, Celeste. It's a fine balance between asking the questions as worded and then following up with lots of probing questions and, you know, can you continue, all sorts of ways you can, trying to get the elder or the person you're interviewing to go deeper and deeper and pulling out those lessons. Mm-hmm. We also want all the youth to ask the same questions because this is a data collection process. So we want, if they all ask different questions, then the lessons there would be potentially too many lessons to actually analyze. So we want these set topics to be in place through the questions. We'll talk a little bit more about them as we go, in a little bit. Are there any other questions? I can't see the chat. So Celeste, if you'll help me if there is a question that comes up.
Yes, I can see the chat and I'm monitoring it. Folks, feel free to ask your questions, and you know, we'll be monitoring those and make sure that Leslie hears them and has a chance to respond. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. We're happy to provide anybody who is interested with a manual that includes detailed directions for facilitators to implement the program. Begins with providing a program overview. Then the curriculum for the program follows, in which activities conducted with youth and elders are described in detail. Handouts for the training and other implementation resources are also included in the manual. We've designed the program, the BCLT program, to be administered in 5 sessions. However, it's really up to the folks implementing the program to design the ideal number of sessions for their participants. Some sites have run the program in 1-hour sessions over many weeks. Others have trained the youth in a full day session, and there's everything in between. Let's see, it's not moving. There we go. Session 1 includes lessons on ageism, elder wisdom, and basic communication skills. Session 2, the youth are taught specific interviewing skills. They develop interview questions and are given extensive time to role play and practice their interviewing. Next, the youth conduct interviews with the elders. After that, the youth summarize their interviews by listing the lessons that were offered. Then they analyze the data in terms of frequency of offered lessons, how many times any one lesson was offered, and the importance of those lessons to the youth themselves. They then summarize their findings, typically in a slide presentation. Finally, the youth present their findings and reflect on their experience in a presentation to the larger community. So here's a short video of one such community presentation.
Those are the 11 questions that we developed to ask the elders during the interview. So after all was said and done, we took life lessons and quotes and interesting tidbits, opinions, and we boiled them all down into 12 solid key life lessons that we felt were important to be applied to future generations, including our own. And we created a little bit of a system for the PowerPoint from here on. And so the silhouettes of the heads represent the number of elders who had a similar opinion related to the life lesson, proving that great minds think alike. And the thumb sub-symbol represents the number of teens that said they would apply the quote to their own life. Now you may notice that not all of them have thumbs, or only a few. That's only because, not because we didn't like them, there's no thumbs down in this project. These are all very important life lessons. We were only allowed to take 3 as a portion of the project. Number 9 was, parents have a large influence on your life. It can be taken as a good thing or a bad. And the quote was that your examples are made through the original nest. And number 10 was, it's important to work hard, and the amount of effort affects the outcome. Very true. And our quote was, good hard work never hurt anyone.
All right. I think that was Orange County, I think. Can you all, you can hear me, Celeste? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. So that was a little, I'm sorry for the quality of the video, but I thought their presentation was so good I would show it anyways. Here's a slide that another community another group put together, where the life lesson is always do what you like to do, job-wise. How many elders shared this? How many youth thought this was important? And a quote to illustrate the lesson. And then one more slide from another community, little different format. So you can see the presentation can be whatever the youth want it to be. It can be, we can tap their full creativity. So what have we learned? This is a research project after all. Although the BCLT can be administratively cumbersome, we admit that, the implementation of the program can be modified to meet your unique needs and circumstances. So for instance, we began the program with assuming there would just be one implementer. And we quickly found that most communities engaged 2 different educators or implementers to share the burden, one recruiting youth, one who worked with youth, then recruiting youth, one who typically worked with elders and then recruited the elders. Another example of how you can modify is that programs began recruiting youth from established programs that could integrate the BCLT curriculum into that program so that youth weren't adding anything new to their already busy schedules, something I'm sure you're all challenged with. We do pack a lot into the 5 sessions I just outlined, and we have found some ways to maintain the integrity of the program while keeping the amount of time the project takes to a minimum. Sometimes you can evaluate the youth's knowledge of things like basic communication skills and then eliminate that from the curriculum if the youth demonstrate proficiency already, which then would reduce their time commitment to the program. Again, as I said before, we can incorporate the BCLT curriculum into already established youth programming. A number of sites partnered with the public school where there was a class, the teacher they knew and who ran a class that had a public service component. And the BCLT then was offered as as one option for their public service requirement.
Leslie?
Yeah.
You may have said this, but if you could reiterate, what is the time commitment in terms of, is there a thought on how many hours it takes to go through all of the lessons, and the commitment of time for the youth in the class or the 4-H club or whatever it is that does this?
Yeah, and for the youth, I would say between 12 and 20 hours. It really depends on how much practicing, how much time it takes to create and how much time it takes to put the community presentation together. I think the implementers, people running the program can need to evaluate sort of the skill levels of the youth involved, and the more, for instance, if they have, you may just need to focus strictly on the interviewing piece of the curriculum, because they've done basic communication skills, I statements, good listening, they have those skills.
And how many interviews? Is there like a prime number of interviews that each student performs?
It's just one interview.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just one interview. However, you could do more than one. As a matter of fact, that's a big piece of the feedback we get from elders and from youth is they wish they could have done more than one interview. So you could build that you could plan for that and build that into the program. The BCLT interviewing skills can be challenging to train. Interviewing is not a universal skill, and it takes a unique combination of skills to conduct a fruitful interview. So we've reorganized our training over the last 4 years. We've learned that emphasis on the interviewing skills section of the curriculum is really important, and in particular, the ability of the interviewer to ask follow-up questions that result in a broader and deeper response from the elder interviews has been emphasized. We also recommend that you practice, starting with the youth can interview each other, interview their family members. They bringing in interview then the educators running the program. They can model the interview. The youth can can interview the implementers. We've also innovation that we brought to the program was to bring in elders into the training part of the program for the youth to interview. That seemed to be the best way for youth to feel secure in their interviewing skills, because it's exactly what they're going to be doing for the data collection part in the real quote-unquote interview. So the elders you would bring into the program would not be the same elders that the youth are interviewing for the data collection piece. The youth are very nervous. They typically are pretty nervous. So the more practice, the better. And we've seen a direct correlation with lots of practice, really good interviews. Although we've developed the facilitator's manual to stand alone, we're always happy to provide support to anyone implementing the program. We are always happy. Yeah, we know that folks are busy, and training over several days is not attractive. To address this, we've offered a variety of training choices, including regional in-person trainings, online trainings where implementers read through the manual ahead of time, and Zoom or conference call updates and follow-up sessions. As I noted earlier, the BCLT has employed a rigorous evaluation design in hopes of shedding new light on the benefits of intergenerational programs. The project has also provided useful experience in conducting controlled evaluations with county cooperative extension professionals as research partners. We've tested the BCLT program in 12 New York State counties with our extension partners over 4 years. We piloted the program in 2014 in 3 sites, then implemented the program in 7 more sites in 2014 and 2016, and 5 more sites by the end of 2017. As you can see, there are 4 sites participated in the BCLT incorporating a randomized controlled trial research design, which is pretty unusual, quite unique, and was super exciting to do. It was very successful. In the randomized control trials, whereas we recommend you recruit 10 youth and then 10 elders, in the randomized control trials, we asked our cooperative extension partners to recruit 20 youth and 20 elders, and then we randomly assigned the youth and elders to either the treatment group or the control group. Everybody was interviewed. We collected data on everybody, but the treatment group then proceeded to participate in the program. We found that the BCLT program did have positive influences on the youth. 100% of the youth reported that their experience in the BCLT was useful, both by learning new skills that will help them in the future and by interacting with older people and receiving helpful advice. Again, 100% of the youth found the experience enjoyable, most notably citing that they enjoyed time with the elder and received good advice. And in both these cases, half of the kids thought it was either it was extremely useful and extremely enjoyable. The youth also felt that they benefited the elders by in their interactions with them. And a little over 90% reported they'd recommend the BCLT to other youth. Measures of youth's perceptions of older people, their feelings about working with older people, and items about the youth's sense of purpose in their life and self-perceptions did demonstrate a positive change. Our preliminary data analysis indicates strong, significant changes on these measures from the pre-test to the post-test, and we're very excited about that. Again, it's a unique sort of opportunity to engage in this kind of research with our cooperative extension partners. Elders also felt very positive about the BCLT program. 94% of the elders reported finding the interaction with youth enjoyable and rewarding, happily sharing their advice. And 100% of the elders would recommend the program to others, citing that the youth were enthusiastic, well-prepared, and demonstrated a real interest in their lives. Although the elders' responses on the measures regarding their perceptions of young people and their sense of purpose in their life and own self-perceptions were consistently positive, our preliminary findings showed no significant change from the pre-test to the post-test. And I think the simple explanation for that is the elders just aren't involved as much as the youth in the program. Any ways that you have to involve the elders more by increasing the number of interviews that are conducted, increasing elders' participation in the actual training, and certainly in the community presentation. We're currently working on a little bit stronger and more in-depth orientation for the elders. In our recruitment of elders, we simply ask them to participate, give them a little bit of information, and most of the time they're like, yeah, I want to do that. But we don't do any kind of training or orientation with them other than that. So let me leave you with some words from a youth and an elder. It went great, the youth said. She told me some stories I never would have imagined and gave me some useful tips on life. I found it fascinating that the youth actually talk quite frequently about how useful the advice was and that they were going to use it right away. I really liked that piece of this program. One elder said, "I thought, this is a great idea, and it's too bad that more people can't take part in it." So as I've said before, we are so happy to share this manual. Here's the URL. If you just want to Google CITRA Cornell, you'll find our website as well. There are a variety of projects presented on this website, BCLT being one of them. You can, anybody who requests the manual gets it. You just have to fill out a little form. So we hope you do that. Here's a couple other resources for you. The Cornell Legacy Project has a couple websites, and a website and a YouTube channel, and it's a good way to sort of get a sense of what we mean by life lessons. There's hundreds of them posted, and a good sense. Also, the YouTube channel is videos of elders sharing their lessons. So this is a good resource to use with the youth, but also to orient yourself to what the BCLT is really all about. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any more questions or talk with people specifically about how they might implement this in their own communities.
So maybe we can pause a little bit and ask folks if you have particular questions or thoughts. Okay, here comes one from Logan. Do youth presentations need to be live? Could it be a video?
Well, that's a very good question. It is that we are in that age, right, of where technology is, as we're doing today, can be a real, can make life a lot easier. I guess it would depend on who you can reach. Do you mean you would videotape the presentation and then distribute the video to the public kind of thing?
Logan, do you have some specific ideas there? That's right, or maybe view it.
Yeah. It's a fabulous idea, and our answer typically is yes. Try it out. We want to see. We want innovation. We want you to innovate, and we want to see how it works. So I think it's a great idea, and I'd love to work with you if you ever run the program to figure that out. They're fun to support the project. We have, right, the digital recorders. We do have a little bit of funding left to distribute, not too much, but enough maybe to cover food that you might offer the youth, etc. Not enough to cover staff time, for instance. We do have voice recorders that we are very happy to loan you. We'll just FedEx them to you. You'll use them, and you can FedEx them back to us. The phone apps, that's a really good question. We have discouraged the use of phone apps. I use, for instance, what is the name of that app? Tape-a-Call. It has been very, very reliable for me. That's an app that I've used. One of our concerns with youth using apps is that they're so used to popping things off to Instagram or YouTube or, YouTube, or they might have a YouTube channel, or that we're concerned about confidentiality issues. So if they've conducted the interview, recorded it on their phone, we want to urge you to be concerned about confidentiality regarding that. So there might be a process that you can initiate to get it off their phone right away so that it doesn't go out to any kind of, doesn't go out to the public. It protects the confidentiality of the individual.
So Leslie, do the files of the recorded conversations, Do they come to your office for further analysis? Is that part of?
No, we don't do that. No.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's not a matter of collecting it and sending it in. It's a matter of collecting it so that you have a record of what people have said.
Well, the youth need to listen to the interview, pull out the lessons. The data collection process is this: they listen to they don't have to transcribe the interview, but they listen to it and take notes, specifically listing lessons that came up. Save your money, marry somebody that has that you share interests with, make sure keep your friends, and then a quote. Really fun and lively quotes that illustrate those lessons. So that's what they need to do with that recording.
Gotcha.
And they're done with it.
There's some other questions coming in, but the last thing I'll say about recording is there is a free application that you can download onto your computer. I don't know if you can make it a phone app or not, but it's Audacity. And so I would use that for a lot of audio recordings, because then you could cut sound bites out of something or whatever. I don't know that would be relevant here, but it is free, and it's a pretty standard audio tool that a lot of people use. That if you had a laptop with them, they could do a recording. So there's some other questions coming in here. Sure. Are there certain populations of seniors that would benefit the most from this program? Do you recommend going to nursing homes? Or, add senior centers or low-income housing for seniors? I mean, there's a lot of places that could be targeted if that was a recommendation.
Yeah, we do not recommend that you go to nursing homes. The potential for a cognitive impairment is too high, and that makes the interview very difficult and potentially really frustrating for both parties. So otherwise, though, people have recruited elders from, you name it, from retirement communities, people they know, parents of their coworkers, family, friends, senior centers, anywhere that an elder from. We haven't. We did originally think. The way we designed the program originally was that we asked the implementers to partner with a senior service agency. However, it was way too hard. It was way too cumbersome. And so it's just elders, and that's why the two implementers works. So if you somebody who works with youth and somebody who has those contacts where elders are, that recruitment process can take a lot of time.
Okay. Gotcha.
You reviewed the manual of thinking about youth groups to work with elders to recruit. As we go through the program, is there information that we need to relay back to the research project on campus? Are you still collecting data? We would love to collect data, and we're happy to provide you with our pre-test and post-test. However, again, it's more time for you, for the implementers. So we understand if you don't want to do that. We would love to be in touch with you. We have lots of ideas, lots of experience, and I can guarantee it would be really helpful to you if we had even just one phone call where you explained what you thought your implementation plan, and we could talk about that a little bit. I'm sure we could offer some helpful advice and ideas. And you're always welcome throughout the project to call or email, like, this is happening, what do I do? Or this came up, here's what we're thinking. So we really want to be in touch with you and be as helpful as possible. How long can we get the voice recorders for? For as long as you need, a couple weeks. Sometimes some sites have set one interview day or evening, let's say, where they have 5 interviews happening from 5 to 6 o'clock, and then 5 more interviews happening from 6:30 to 7:30. Some sites have scheduled the interviews over 2 weeks, where one interview happens every day. And in that case, you only need one recorder. If you're scheduling all the interviews at once and you split the group into 5, you only need 5 recorders. So it may be that in the little bit of money that we can give you, you may want to invest in a recorder, because we hope you do this more than once. So yeah, it's really however it works for you, that sort of administrative piece. However it works.
Leslie, it looks like there's another suggestion. Logan is saying GarageBand on iPhone is also free. I wonder if you've considered a sign-off sheet, or having an adult responsible or somebody, because I think the privacy thing is definitely a concern. But I bet that there are ways that, so that the voice recorder is not necessarily a hurdle that needs to be crossed. But
we have in the appendix, and there are some informed consent, consent forms, and you could write, you could figure out. You could use those forms to figure out the confidentiality piece with. GarageBand is on iPhone is also free. I've never used GarageBand, so I'm very curious about it. What are your thoughts or experiences with having relatives interview each other, grandchild interviewing your grandparent? Certainly, of course, that's come up before, and you could do that. I think, though, one of the pieces, because it might be just too easy, and it might. Some of our concerns are, it might be too easy. The grandchild might already know that information. It might be digress into conversation too easily. We want this to be a little challenging for the youth. We want them to actually learn the interviewing skills and apply them, kind of in a public speaking course way. This could be a substitute for a public speaking unit that you might run with your 4-Hers. So we tend to ask people to steer away from the interviews where grandchild and grandparent, for instance. However, if that's what's going to work best for you, go for it and let us know how it went. We're feeling really flexible, and we want to encourage as much creativity and innovation as possible, because that's the way this is going to be usable for the most people.
What an awesome project.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been fun to watch it develop over time too.
Yes.
And
yes.
As Carl has been working on lots of these issues over time. I remember having a conversation with him probably well over a decade ago about, do you think that 4-H might be interested in working through some conversations with, so it's just really awesome to see that there's so much support for this project. And, it's a bit of a citizen science project as well, right? Collecting data and learning from it. So.
And Monica, that's a really great point. If grandchildren don't know their grandparents that well, or haven't had these kinds of conversations, so go for it. You could also have the youth, another way to sort of lessen the administrative burden and also make recruitment easier, you could ask the youth to recruit elders they know and just switch it up too. So if I recruit my grandparent and Johnny recruits his grandparent, we then interview each other's grandparents. We switch it up. Again, the sky's the limit here. Whatever works for you, whatever makes this easiest. The key points are those interviewing skills and practicing, and the community and the data the data analysis, and then the community presentation. However those happen, we're excited to hear your ideas about how you can make those things happen.
So Leslie, before we wrap it up, can I just ask you to open up the website just to kind of give people a little bit of a preview of that, since we do have a few more minutes, and just encouraging these great questions that are coming in. So if folks feel free to continue to ask questions while we do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you were sharing your screen or sharing PowerPoint as an application.
Here we go. Can you see that?
Nope, I'm not seeing it. It must be because it sees hash lines. So you'll have to stop your sharing and then share either your browser or share your screen instead of just the application. It's a funny thing that that Zoom does.
I am not.
Stop share.
Says, yeah, I'm stopping now. I say, and then it says resume share.
Just go ahead and stop share.
Yeah. I can't see. Oh, I see. I'm so sorry. There we go. Okay.
There we go. And then you can do the same process again. Share your screen and share either the application or your either the screen or your application for browser.
You could also
there we go.
Okay, I'll enlarge it. So here we go. How's that?
That looks great.
Okay, so if you go down the screen, you can see building a community legacy together, visit the site, and we have lots of information, including an overview, some publications, program materials, and then at the bottom you can see where you can request the manual. We just want to keep track of how many manuals are requested and who's using it, and we will follow up with you in some amount of time just to see how it's going. No pressure, just to offer our help.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. There's all kinds of great programs on the CITRA site that are, available to our extension staff and educators. And the resources are, the links are on our Campus County Connection website, or I think if you just Googled CITRA or, or the project directly, you would be able to find it pretty easily.
You can see all these programs, yeah. Any other questions?
Not seeing any come in, so
well, please be in touch. Those of you that want to implement the program, we'd love to know that that's happening.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go back and share. Let's see. All right. Can you see? Are you looking at my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. And you see the BCLT Intergenerational Program page. Is that what you're looking at? I'm not seeing the green. Usually it gives me it shows me what's being shared. So I'm just checking. But anyway, I want to thank you all for joining our Campus County Connection webinar today. This was fantastic, and what a great resource. I will put up the slides that were shared today, if that's okay with you, Leslie.
For sure.
And the link directly to Building a Community Legacy Together is here, as well as the Legacy Project. We don't have anything else scheduled for Campus County Connections for this spring, but occasionally things pop up, and we'll let you know about that through the Extension Insider newsletter. So once again, thank you. I want to thank Monica and also Leslie for requesting this webinar time and for presenting. This was really awesome.
Thank you so much, Celeste. And thanks to everybody who participated.
Yep, looks like you're getting some good kudos here.
Great.
All right, I'm going to stop our recording and stop our sharing. So have a great day, everyone.